photography should be. It doesn't. This is a democratic medium. It doesn't belong with the snooty wine drinking people.
Snooty wine drinking people, I still love you. Red light is on. Sound is good. Hello, this is Waswo X Waswo, Evil O, and today I'm coming to you from Goa and Panaji to be exact, and I'm sitting with somebody very exciting, one of Goa's best known portrait photographers, Mr. Alex Fernandes. How are you, Alex, today?
Very good, Waswo. It's a pleasure to be on Evil O.
Yeah, it's exciting to be with you. Yes. Everybody knows you on Facebook. You're quite popular on Facebook, I think.
Well, if it's credibility that I'm known on Facebook.
So Alex was and still is, a portrait photographer, but he goes back how many years? When did you start?
I think 35 years as a professional photographer. And in Goa, from 2005, I've been doing these series of photographs for, which started off as an archival project, basically, you know. So I have different series that I've worked on, and I can show them and share them with Waswo.
Yeah, we'll insert images later. Right now, you're going to have to talk very generally about this series and whatever. But I just want to know a little more about your photo studio, because your photo studio reminds me of the almost the stereotypical little Indian photography studio, but you did marvelous things with it.
Yes.
I think somebody like Christopher Pinney would be really interested in what Alex Fernandes has done. Ranjit Haskodi has already been interested in his work. You tend to use seamless backdrops.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I basically worked as a professional. I started off in Bombay as an advertising photographer, as an assistant, and I basically did everything that was required as a commercial photographer, fashion, food, and things like this. And I moved to the Middle East for some time, and I had absolutely no art training as such. I'm self-taught as a photographer also. So everything I know, I have researched and learned myself. It's only after 1998 that I felt the need to do something more with photography, and I thought I could do something more with photography, and I moved back home to Goa, which was this huge kind of experimental playground for me, you know, and I could approach musicians, being Goan, you know, and the theatre actors and everybody. I had the connections.
Did you ever do like the wedding photographs?
Yes. I have done almost every thing, from food to weddings to industrial work.
Because you always survive completely on your photography.
Yes, I've always, so as a professional, that's the Kodak definition of professional, is somebody who earns his living.
And you were shooting with film.
I shot with film for a major part of my career. I've been using film. I have also shot on different formats of camera. Right from the Sinar large formats, and I went to their factory actually in Switzerland, in Basel, and it was a nice experience. Film was good, but
you processed your own film in your own darkroom?
Never appealed to me, processing.
Never appealed to you. Okay.
I'm always like, it's a very romantic notion nowadays that you have to process your own film. That's for my opinion. But for me, it never appealed to me to process my own film or print it. I used to sit with a printer, make test prints, point out to the guy that this is exactly what I want. So we would cut off maybe a little magenta, cyan here and there, get the thing right. And that was my
supervisor.
Yeah, that
printing
was
in the darkroom.
Yeah,
I kind of loved it, but it's so time consuming.
It's tedious.
It's very tedious.
Yes.
And people don't understand that these days,
And-
because in Photoshop, when you adjust contrast like this, and in the darkroom you had to make a test print, and if it was too contrasty, you had to like adjust your settings,
Right.
use a different type of paper, make another
Right.
test print. It was so much more tedious.
It was very tedious. And when Photoshop came on the scene, and the first time I saw Photoshop in the 90s,
Yeah.
it was like, this is what I need, you know,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is what I need. Because I work alone, I never have an assistant. I have just one light on a boom, and it's actually, the light on a boom makes sense because you can hold the end of the boom and then just move that light around, feather, or do whatever you want
Oh, that's a
with
great
it.
idea,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So the boom is the only thing that I use, and I work from my camera angle, holding the end of the boom, and that's what I do with the lighting. You
So
know,
that was your method. all the
that's my
time.
method all the time.
Oh, really?
I
That's
never
a
work
brilliant
with an
method to
assistant.
use.
I never work with an assistant. I just do everything myself.
So
I work
in one hand
extremely
you were
fast.
operating the camera, and the other hand you were operating.
Not always. Just the minor adjustments, you know, before I start shooting.
Okay.
So it's when you have an assistant, you can move the light here and things like this. But with a boom, it gets easier, especially if you're working alone.
So let's talk about your first series, which was the series on the dramatists, the theater people from
Théâtre.
Goa.
Théâtre. Yeah.
Yeah, what was it?
It's called théâtre.
Théâtre.
Yeah, théâtre.
That's what it's called in Goa.
In Goa, yeah. It
Yeah.
comes from the Italian word teatro.
Those are marvelous photos. Can you just explain that series a little bit? Some of the specific images, maybe?
Yes. Yeah, I thought of doing theatrist in Goa as a way of promoting my business, which was Portrait Atelier. And I happened to talk to a friend of mine from the Times of India called Miranda, because here the journalists follow theatre very closely and they know who's who. I'm not a theatre fan, but when I look at images, and I think that theatre was a way for a portrait photographer to show a connection between Goa and the portraits. You know, the portraits had that Goan connection, kind of, which came with theatre. So Miranda gave me a list of, I did 38 of them in 1 month. That was in 2005. And I did some of them in Bombay. I rented a studio, and I work very fast. So it was not more than 5 minutes per person. They all came at appointed half-an-hour slots.
But they're wonderful characters because
Yeah.
they're dramatists, so they can really get into these
Exactly.
roles.
And
you have one of you have a priest who plays a priest.
Yes.
I find that very interesting.
Yes.
And different people playing.
And different people playing different roles that they are very well known for in the theatre circle. So the Batkar, for example, the landowner in Konkani. So the Batkar is like this person who has this costume and this cap, and he has this very regal appearance about him. And the Batkan, his wife, which also, you know, she's all gloved.
So that's
and
sort of like the Thakur, we would say up in Rajasthan, the Thakur and his wife. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes. It's the thing all over India. This class of people, you know, that own land and show land ownership with costume. So this is also in theatre. So there are stories that
Didn't
revolve.
you say that Miranda, that was sort
Yes.
of, a picture of his father in ways?
Yeah,
or-
the tailcoat.
The
Yes,
tailcoat.
the tailcoat was Mario Miranda's father. That's what he told. He said once. It was an inspiration from his father. And Mario came from a very affluent Goan family.
You wouldn't guess that from his cartoons, because his cartoons seem so of the people, sort of. Very
Yes,
working
yeah,
class
egalitarian
people.
kind of.
You wouldn't expect that
you
he
wouldn't
came
expect.
from a wealthy family.
He came
at
from a
all.
very wealthy family, and the thing about Mario is, Mario was in Bombay for a while. Mario was the guy who illustrated my school textbooks, a book called Bal Bharati. So Mario was a huge influence on me. And when I started photographing theatre, I started seeing these characters very similar to what Mario Miranda did in his Goa series. So we had the Bhatkar, and then you had Mario's father, who was this very aristocratic figure with a tailcoat, and there were so many of these, the clergy and the fisherwoman, and these people from regular realms of Goan life would come alive on theatre stage. And then when I photographed them, the actors are transformed into their stage personalities, you know, so they become someone who they are well known for. The public easily recognizes them. So I'm not an academic. I spoke to my friend Rahul Srivastav. I said, I'm seeing this imagery, which is very interesting. Mario has it, the theatrist has it. When I photograph them, they appear in the photograph also. He said they are archetypes, as opposed to a stereotype. A stereotype is something which is recklessly treated, like Bollywood
Right,
would.
an archetype is more universal.
Is more universal.
Right.
It is also something that you look up to, you know. And that's what happens in theatre, because there are these universal figures: the Bhatkar, the this, the that, the Bebdo, the drunk, the village drunk. But he's a lovable drunk, you know. And
I make that same distinction in my own photography.
Yes.
When I get accused of stereotyping or making types, it's like, to me, they're not types, they're archetypes.
Yeah, they're archetypes.
Like that.
And Christopher Pinney says this once, I don't know where I read it, but he says that these things sort of crystallize, it's in a universal mind. And they crystallize when you analyze them in art, when you look at them in literature, when you look at them in photographs. And they appeared in the photographs. They are a common shared, it's common shared imagery. When people look at them, whether on the street, and why they became popular in Goa is because they were easily recognizable. I didn't have to go to a high-fly art gallery and explain myself as to what I was. Anybody could walk up and say, wow, this is this.
We recognize.
Yeah, we recognize it.
We've seen them on the
We've
street
seen
or
them,
whatever.
yeah.
So this is this first body of work, if I remember what you told me, Ranjit Haskoti then created
yes.
a show of that. And
Yes.
what was it called?
The first body of work, that was a solo show which I did at Literati. And it was Ranjit Hoskote wrote an essay for
Cafe Literate.
Yes, Cafe,
Literate.
Divya
Yeah.
Kapoor's place, and Dayanita opened the exhibition, and it was my first. Yes,
really,
yes,
oh,
yes,
how nice
yes.
of her. Okay,
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
She in a way, I never had a mentor, but if I had one, I would say it was her. She's
well, that's
like
a great mentor to have.
because she sort of pointed me in the right direction. I was very crude at that point, and I didn't know where to look. You know, I knew I had this work, which is very, very powerful, but I didn't know where to go with it. And then it was Ranjit Hoskote and Dayanita Singh who said, like, look, this is what we can do with it. And Ranjit insisted that we print a catalog with the essay and the photographs. And Dayanita then sort of, she actually asked me to give the book to the Panjim Central Library. And they bought 70 copies, which were distributed to all the talukas. She said it makes a good textbook for kids. Which I agree. I didn't see
and all of these actors, and
Yeah.
I guess you're not supposed to say actresses anymore, but I'll say actresses.
Yeah.
But actors and actresses, they all signed their names.
Yes, I had them sign it
and that
initially.
became a little dispute between you and Ranjit about whether or not that should be done.
Not really a dispute, but the Ranjit, as the curator, said it was a technical thing that a photograph shouldn't contain signatures, they become autographs. So we decided to go then with the photographs without the signatures. But my intention initially was to have, I had everybody sign.
Well, you know, I love Ranjit Haskoti, but I actually like what you showed me with the signatures,
Okay.
because to me it makes it, what is your atelier called? Atelier Goa?
Portrait Atelier.
Portrait Atelier,
Yes.
that's the name of your
Yes.
photo studio. Portrait Atelier.
Yeah.
To me, it makes it more authentically a small Indian.
It was meant
photo
to be,
studio,
yeah,
which
it was
is what
meant
it's
to
meant
be
to
that.
be,
Yeah, it was
you know?
meant to be that,
Yeah.
yes. This small, it didn't do well. as a commercial establishment, it flopped big time. It flopped big time as a commercial establishment. I used to survive on advertising, which I did on the side. So I would shoot for hotels and interiors and things like this. So I'm very diverse. I can fit into a lot of things when it
You're
is.
a survivor.
Yes. And photography, like, yes, from Bombay, the advertising days in the 80s, in 1982, when there were very few photographers, there were no schools. You had to learn things hands-on. And the Middle East was a different ball game, you know. There it was, you didn't have 10 assistants, you do everything yourself. I worked with Germans.
Oh, Germans.
Yeah.
Oh, they're the worst.
Very good photographers, but they were like people who demanded.
That was my word.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say it.
They demanded that you do things in a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to your next. My mic fell off. Let's move on to your next series, which was the musicians. Let's talk about the musicians for a while, because that's a fabulous series too. The musicians with the saxophones and the violins and the cellos. And
yes.
There was one drummer that you did that.
The percussionist, the
what was
Bondo.
his name?
Bondo.
And he's very famous.
He's very famous, yes.
Also, but he played with Duke Ellington or something.
He played with Duke Ellington.
Okay.
He played with Duke Ellington.
So let's talk about that musician series.
Yeah, the musician series was also, Dayanita actually suggested that I continue. And she suggested brass bands, but brass bands are not a very cohesive group as such. So I thought of musicians, and we have a lot of them here. Because, and especially with the people who play Western classical music, jazz, I believe, like Naresh Fernandes says it, he says jazz originated in Calcutta from black people who jumped ship and started playing jazz in Calcutta clubs. And there were a few Goans over there who picked up jazz in the 40s, late 40s, and after World War II. So jazz came to Goa much later, but Calcutta is the home of jazz. Here, it's because of the church influence and all, we had a lot of classical musicians, people who play Bach and, you know, all these people. And I thought it would be a good thing to document. So we got Emilian de Cruz, the violinist, the cello player, and then there were opera singers, Mercedes Lobo and her sister Myra Shroff. And they're classical musicians and opera.
People don't realize like Goa has all of this culture. They have all this drama, opera, everything is here. You know, I think that's a leftover from the Portuguese, I think.
It's a leftover from the Portuguese. It's a transformation of a certain segment of the Goan society. The Catholic segment, you know, the churches, and along with the churches came the church music. So that's why you had Western music influence here. So people were basically training to be singing hymns in choirs and things like this, and that's how they picked up Western music. You have also a rich Indian classical, which I have not documented. For some reason I couldn't do it. You
had one photo of a sitar.
A few, because Bondo and the other fusion musicians who actually trained under the Indian classical musicians to improve their jazz, because Indian classical music is far more complex in that sense. They have more notes, I think, than, I'm not very technical at this, but this is what Bondo explained to me. And he said, you have to include the Indian classical musicians, the sitarist, he's saying, and it's a fact, because even George Harrison, when he saw Ravi Shankar with the sitar, he said, like, legendary. This man is phenomenal. Like, it's a fact that Indian classical guys on sitars and all.
I love Indian music.
Yeah.
I even love Bollywood music. I love listening to Bollywood.
I'm not much of a Bollywood fan, but I like...
I'm not so much a Bollywood fan, but I'm a Bollywood music fan.
Okay.
You know, if there's a difference there. We listen to it in the Jeep a lot as we travel, and I really love it.
Okay.
But anyway, So you did this series on dramatists, the
Yeah.
theater people, I'll say, and then the musicians. And then your most recent claim to fame is you were approached to do something for Serendipity.
Yes,
Was
Prashant
really-
Panjar.
You want to talk about your Serendipity project?
Yes.
'Cause that's a big one. That's what everybody's going to recognize probably.
Yes, it was very popular. Actually, the press here went gaga. I got like write-ups in almost every newspaper in Goa, from the Times of India, which is like a prestigious thing to have. So the idea came. Prashant came here, and he was the curator for Serendipity. There were two. Dinesh Khanna was handling us.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
Dinesh Khanna, sure.
yeah. Dinesh Khanna was handling a few people, and then Prashant was handling myself, and I think it was the Times of India.
Agarwal. No.
Times of India photographer from Goa.
Oh, okay,
yeah, from
okay.
Goa. But Dinesh Khanna was handling the people from outside. I think there were a few big names at that time, and one thing I liked was the idea
But
of
here you
having
switched to color.
Yeah,
'Cause the
that's-
previous series were black
all
and
black
white.
and white, yeah.
And now you did color, and I assume you did digital.
It was all digital.
It was all
It was
digital,
all
yes.
shot on a digital Nikon. All of them are shot on digital format. I don't see much if it's done well on proper like animal or paper or some very good archival with proper archival inks. It's quite a treat to see.
You can't
a
tell
print.
the difference.
You can't tell
anymore,
the difference.
honestly.
You
It really
can't, honestly.
depends how.
Honestly.
I think there's a lot of sloppy digital work where it's just kind of cranked out. But if people really spend the time on digital like they used to spend the time in the dark room,
Exactly.
then you
exactly.
can make really beautiful digital.
Exactly, my point is that if you know what you are supposed to do in the dark room, if you have that experience as an analog photographer, and if you translate all of that to digital, you can do wonders.
Right.
You know, so it's digital is not a demon. It's like something. It's the technology of this time. It saved me hell of a lot of money, which I couldn't have done using
Well, I've
film.
learned to really praise
Yeah.
photos. I mean, because you can go in and dodge and burn these tiny little
Yes.
areas that you could never
do
in the dark room.
in
You
the
could
dark
never
room.
do that
Yes.
in the dark room.
Yes. So I coming back to the project with Prashant, we decided to go color. We also decided that we would do 9 feet by 7 feet was the size of the prints.
Oh, they were huge.
Yeah, they were. It was a street exhibition in the front facade of the Kala Academy,
Oh.
right there.
So it was
it
outdoors
was
in
right,
everybody's
and I
faces.
was dying to do this in a public space.
And how many images were there?
There were 27.
27, that
27.
size. Oh my God.
9 feet. And it was like huge all over the place.
That's enormous.
Yeah.
So like everybody in Goa knew you
And
then.
Kasha Wande and you and Yannick Cormier.
Yeah.
Y'all were the first, y'all were the guys who were pioneers at this. Y'all did it in Pondicherry.
That was
and
all
I
Kasha.
said, wow,
I give all the credit to
this is
Kasha.
how photography should be. It doesn't, this is a democratic medium. It doesn't belong with the snooty wine drinking people. No offense to anybody. I know a lot of snooty wine
I
drinking.
still like the snooty wine drinking people. I still love you. You're
Me
my
too, me too.
collectors.
No
You're
offense.
My collectors, my gallerists, snooty wine drinking people. I love you all. Anyway, continue.
But photography was democratic, you know.
Yes.
And I thought it was such a treat to see what you all did with Kasha Wande, you and Yannick, and this was right on the road, and I said that's how photography should go. Right in the path of people, you know, like people walk around, and it's not those people who are like, look, I'm going to write a critique about this. It's somebody who just stops even for a few seconds and say, what is this? Who is this? Like, you know, and what is this doing here? You know, and that is what I wanted with my photographs. I wanted people, regular, common people, to stop and see and experience that archetype. And it happened because there was a bunch of school kids who came there, and they said, you know, oh, this is this, and like they were debating on whether it was the same person, because we used 2 actors, And it was much like a Peter Sellers movie where we had like these wigs and mustaches.
Wait, you only used 2 actors in that whole series?
In the whole series.
That whole series was only 2 actors?
Just
really?
2. It was a couple.
Oh, because they all look so different.
They look different because of the makeup, the wigs.
Okay.
We got wigs from Amazon. We had makeup. The stomachs were cushions.
And I remember you did like hippies.
Yes.
You did like the Indian hippies.
Yes.
Like the Indians who
The
just came to
tourists.
goggle the hippies.
Yeah.
You did everybody.
Yeah.
You would like see the gossiping woman.
The gossiping woman, and a lot of them are from stage, from theatre stage. They appear in almost every drama, and they are part of real life dramas also, you know. So there's the clergy, the priest, and all these people, and when people look at it, when people look at theatre, they sort of identify it is a part of them being Goan, you know, and they can feel, you can feel that connection that happens from the photographs. And it happened here in Goa, so like it's the audience is also different.
You've had a lot of connection throughout your life with the actors, the actresses, the musicians. I keep saying actresses, the musicians, and you had a lot of connection with the hippies when they came too, right?
Yes. And actually, I did a project which, see, at some point the hippie culture here was a very underground thing. So unless you were a part of it,
today. I mean,
it's not like today.
There are no real hippies here anymore. I mean, the hippies
very few, and they
hippies go
are very
back.
low profile. Yeah,
Right.
I'm talking 60s, 70s, 80s. That's when I arrived on the scene first time in Goa, and I saw this thing, and it was very interesting. It was a counterculture, and I told Ranjit Oskote about it. I said, I want to do something with counterculture. It's very fascinating. It's very intelligent. A lot of my thought processes came from being and dealing with this type of culture, the counterculture here in Goa. It was something like which was totally fascinating from mainstream, and a camera was where those people are camera shy. You could never take a camera to a trance party and start taking pictures. They were afraid that you would expose what was going on there, and then the government would clamp down on them and things like this.
You were what did they call them? The narcs.
Yeah, the narcs.
You were the narcs. You were there to bust them for drugs and taking photos.
And in the time that I hung out there were very few local people who would go there and hang out there. It was taboo.
Yeah.
And now you find a lot of young kids from Maharashtra and Delhi coming there, and it's a huge cool scene.
In ways the hippie culture lives on, but it's evolved.
Yes, it's evolved. It's
morphed
evolved
into something very different than what it was originally.
The concept of the flea markets, you know, and now you have this very commercial Saturday night market. They're very much for tourists. But I remember going to flea markets where people would sell old cassette tapes, you know, and that's how I got a lot of my music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got, because you couldn't buy rock bands like, you know, like some of the earlier, like Jimi Hendrix or some of the earlier rock bands. This music was not available here in Goa or in Mumbai. It was only from the flea market. I had a very good collection of
people going to Chor Bazaar or whatever and buying
rock music.
Delhi. I think Pablo Bartholomew told me similar stories. You know. So this is going on a little long. I should probably end it. We try to keep them to about a half hour.
Oh, yeah, great.
So Alex Fernandes,
my pleasure.
This has been a really nice conversation.
Great.
Thank you for joining Evil O. Thank all of you for watching, even you snooty wine drinkers. Thank you for watching, and everybody else too. This is Wazwo X Wazwo, Evil O, signing off from Goa. Wave, Alex. Wave. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.